At 12 years old, a child is supposed to have playdates with their friends, cry when they have fallen, or even complain that they do not want to go to school. However, the average age a child starts to become trafficked in the United States is 12 years old, and instead of them having the freedom to do these things like any other child, they are stuck in an ongoing cycle without knowing when it will end. Sex trafficking is when someone is taken and forced to be sexually exploited by providing various services to those who buy them. When it comes to sex trafficking, their age, gender, or race doesn't matter. All that matters is if they are able to provide these services so traffickers can receive income. This can also be said about traffickers. There is no specific look they have. It can be anyone, someone you know, or a complete stranger. Before I get into the issues connected to sex trafficking and solutions, I'll introduce a bit of background information. Sex trafficking in the United States can be traced all the way back to its colonial times, where Native women were taken and sold off, African Americans were forced to breed with one another, and African women were also sold into prostitution. Sex trafficking was not recognized until the White Slave Trafficking Act was passed in 1910. This act helped prevent women and girls from being transported around the country for prostitution and other unethical reasons. During this time period, when the act was passed, there was an uprising in white girls being tricked or kidnapped and forced into trafficking. Prior to this, people, including children, were referred to as prostitutes, so law enforcement and the government had no concern for them. After this law was passed, it was not until the year 2000 where the government passed the Federal and Victims Prevention Act, where trafficking was becoming more addressed along with providing help to individuals who have been trafficked. Since then, there have been 8 more changes to the Federal and Victims Prevention Act that includes more resources for the victims and their families. Now, moving on to the problems. The first one. Child abuse is a problem that has a deep connection with sex trafficking. Children are one of the most vulnerable groups in the world, and the treatment they receive from their guardians has an ultimate say on what these children will become in the future. When children are abused, their physical and mental health may be affected, the development in creating relationships with others can be affected, and children possibly running away from their home as a result of the abuse. A journal published by Sandra Stone and Amy Ashcraft, these women stated, "Traffickers tend to target individuals perceived as vulnerable, such as those with a history of abuse, those who are homeless, and or those with a substance addiction." This quote connects to what was previously stated that children who have experienced abuse could potentially become victims of trafficking. Now, the second problem, lack of awareness in law enforcement. The Department of Health and Human Services states, "Another challenge to identifying victims is the lack of acknowledgement by some law enforcement and service providers that someone is a victim of trafficking." This quote demonstrates that there are law enforcement officials and service providers who are unable to accept that people can be trafficked. Without the help of law enforcement, these victims won't be identified, rescued, and given the suitable medical care and other resources, along with a chance of going back to society. The final problem, exploitation in organizations. Organizations are created to make an attempt to help people learn about injustices and create an opening for those who have been affected by them. For instance, the organization Operation Underground Railroad, now known as Our Rescue, was designed to rescue children and adults who are being sex trafficked and exploited. They work with law enforcement and providing aftercare for the survivors, operating both in the United States and internationally. However, in 2023, following an investigation, previous owner Tim Ballard was accused of sexual misconduct involving 7 women, potentially more. According to an article written by Vice, Ballard would invite these women over to act as his wife in order to supposedly aim to rescue sex traffickees. These women allegedly would have to shower and sleep in the same bed as him to ensure they are playing the part correctly. Now, moving on to the solutions. The first one, the public becoming more aware. Having the public become more aware of the issue overall helps them understand and know the signs of someone being trafficked, how to protect themselves, their family, friends, children, and community. A good way people can become more aware in the sex trafficking is by listening and reading stories of survivors. Everyone's story is not the same, so when people read and hear these stories, it helps them have a better understanding of the various ways people are brought into trafficking. Watching documentaries and TED Talks is also a good way for people to become more aware, along with researching organizations who help these victims. The second solution is calling out these organizations who are not adequately funding and providing resources for victims of sex trafficking. As previously stated, the organization Operation Underground Railroad's reputation was starting to crack because of the allegations against their CEO Ballard, and as a result, he made the decision to leave the company. After Ballard's departure, the organization changed their name to Our Rescue and now hold an 83% overall rating. By calling out these organizations, it would not only help those who are looking for places to donate their time and money, but for the victims of trafficking as well, saving them from being exploited. The third solution is better acknowledgement for training in law enforcement. Law enforcement is a group of people who are most likely to be able to identify those who are being trafficked. By having law enforcement receive the proper training and demonstrating that they are able to use it in real-life situations, it increases the chances of victims being identified and helped. The final solution is a better system for traffickees. In airports, there are multiple signs around where if anyone is suspected of or is being trafficked, to call the hotline to receive help. However, in some situations, these sex traffickees may not have any technology, so there is no way for them to call for help. Rather than only placing a hotline, airports may also provide a phone or a button where they are able to call for help. By doing this, it gives these victims a chance to get themselves out of a situation without needing to worry where they will get a telephone. Ever since I became an aunt, I have always feared one day any of my nephews would be taken away from me and I would not be able to see them again. After learning what sex trafficking was, I knew that this topic mattered to me, especially finding out how many children around the world and country are taken from their families and being forced to endure the physical and mental pain of being sold off to people to benefit themselves. In conclusion, it is never too late to become more aware of sex trafficking.